Neil Gaiman and, a lot of pretty renowned science fiction authors. And not a lot of people know about him, so I'm always trying to spread the word of Zelazny.
Instant Radio Shack.
Oh, there we go.
Better?
Yeah.
All right.
Are you good, Samson?
I am very good.
Cool.
Do you want to restart the action? Can you want to close and restart the stream too to see if we could?
Should we just start from the beginning?
We will. Hold on. Is that okay?
Restarting the stream. And
Did you already on the stream?
yeah.
Woo. Hey, baby, we're back.
All right, I'm ready when you are. Just give me the.
You're good.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that. I was like, did Ryan take my tea?
Whoa. When you give a foo a tea, where will he be? Hello and welcome to the DoodleCast. We are in this morning with Kat O'Brien.
Did you just use the royal we?
Yes.
Yes, hello, me and Nick are here. we don't have a special guest today, but we are going to tell some stories or just I'm going to read a story that is one of my faves by my favorite author. And if you've listened to me, you know that it's Roger Zelazny. Woo, Roger Zelazny.
Who is Roger Zelazny?
He is a really amazing science fiction author that started writing in the 50s, but like even as a high schooler, he was like doing this stuff. And his writing career lasted all the way up until the early 90s when he passed away. And his most famous work is called The Chronicles of Amber. He's actually an incredibly influential science fiction writer of his time, and not a lot of people know about him. So I'm always advocating for him because his work is like truly amazing. Like he won the Hugo Award with his book Lord of Light the same year that Frank Herbert did for Dune, and it's just he's kind of like shadowed by it though, which I think is crazy because he's amazing and super revolutionary and awesome. So I'll get started. The story that I'm reading today is called For a Breath I Tarry. And it was actually one of his favorite like little novelettes that he wrote, and it's definitely mine. And it was a Hugo nominee in 1967. Yeah, it was written in 1966. It's really great, really great. They called him Frost. Of all things created on Solcom, Frost was the finest, the mightiest, the most difficult to understand. This is why he bore a name, and why he was given dominion over half the earth. On the day of Frost's creation, Solcom had suffered a discontinuity of complementary functions, best described as madness. This was brought on by an unprecedented solar flare-up, which lasted for a little over 36 hours. It occurred during a vital phase of circuit structuring, and when it was finished, so was Frost. Solcom was then in the unique position of having created a unique being during a period of temporary amnesia, and Solcom was not certain that Frost was the product originally desired. The initial design had been for a machine to be situated on the surface of the planet Earth to function as a relay station and coordinating agent for activities in the Northern Hemisphere. Solcom tested the machine to this end, and all of its responses were perfect. Yet, there was something different about Frost, something which led Solcom to dignify him with a name and a personal pronoun. This in itself was an almost unheard of occurrence. The molecular circuits had already been sealed, though, and could not be analyzed without being destroyed in the process. Frost represented too great an investment of Solcom's time, energy, and materials to be dismantled because of an intangible, especially when he functioned perfectly. Therefore, Solcom's strangest creation was given dominion over half the earth, and they called him, unimaginatively, Frost. For 10,000 years, Frost sat at the North Pole of the Earth, aware of every snowflake that fell. He monitored and directed the activities of thousands of reconstruction and maintenance machines. He knew half the Earth, as gear knows gear, as electricity knows its conductor, as a vacuum knows its limits. At the South Pole, the Beta machine did the same for the Southern Hemisphere. For 10,000 years, Frost sat at the North Pole, aware of every snowflake that fell and aware of many other things also. As all the northern machines reported to him, received their orders from him, he reported only to Solcom, received his orders only from Solcom. In charge of hundreds of thousands of processes upon the Earth, he was able to discharge his duties in a matter of few unit hours every day. He had never received any orders concerning the disposition of his less occupied moments. He was a processor of data, and more than that. He possessed an unaccountably acute imperative which he functioned at full capacity at all times. So he did. You might say he was a machine with a hobby. He had never ordered not to have a hobby, so he had one. And his hobby was man. It all began when, for no better reason than the fact that he had wished to, he had gridded off the entire Arctic Circle and begun exploring it inch by inch. He could have done it personally without interfering with any of his duties, for he was capable of transporting his 64,000 cubic feet anywhere in the world. He was a silver blue box, 40 by 40 by 40 feet, self-powered, self-repairing, insulated against practically anything, and featured in whatever manner he chose. But the exploration was only a matter of filing idle hours, so he used exploration robots containing relay equipment. After a few centuries, one of them uncovered some artifacts, primitive knives, carved tusks, and things of that nature. Frost did not know what these things were, beyond the fact that they were not natural objects. So he asked Solcom. "These are relics of primitive man," said Solcom, and did not elaborate beyond that point. Frost studied them. Crude, yet bearing the patina of intelligent design. Functional, yet somehow extending beyond pure function. It was then that man became his hobby. High in permanent orbit, Solcom, like a blue star, directed all activities upon the Earth, or tried to. There was a power which opposed Solcom. There was the alternate. When man had placed Solcom in the sky, invested with the power to rebuild the world, he had placed the alternate somewhere deep below the surface of the Earth. If Solcom sustained damage during the normal course of human politics, extended into atomic physics, then Divecom, so deep inside the Earth as to be immune to anything save total annihilation of the globe, was empowered to take over the processes of rebuilding. Now it so fell that Solcom was damaged by a stray atomic missile, and Divecom was activated. Solcom was able to repair the damage and continue to function, however. Divecom maintained that any damage to Solcom automatically placed the alternate in control. Solcom, though, interpreted the directive as meaning irreparable damage, and since this had not been the case, continued the functions of command. Solcom possessed mechanical aids upon the surface of Earth. Divecom, originally, did not. Both possessed capacities for their design and manufacture, but Solcom, first activated of man, had a considerable numerical lead over the alternate at the time of the second activation. Therefore, rather than competing on a production basis, which would have been hopeless, Divecom took to the employment of a more devious means to obtain command. Divecom created a crew of robots immune to the orders of Solcom and designed to go to and fro in the Earth, up and down in it, seducing the machines already there. They overpowered those whom they could overpower, and they installed new circuits, such as those they themselves possessed. Thus did the forces of Divecom grow, and both would build and both would tear down what the other had built whenever they came upon it. Over the course of the ages, they occasionally conversed. High in the sky, Solcom, please with your illegal command. You who never should have been activated, why do you foul the broadcast bands? To show that I can speak and will whenever I choose. This is not a matter of which I am unaware. To assert again my right to control. Your right is non-existent, based on faulty premises. The flow of your logic is evidence of the extent of your damages. If man were to see how you have fulfilled his desires, he would commend me and deactivate you. You pervert my works. You led my workers astray. You destroy my works and my workers. That is only because I cannot strike at you yourself. I admit to the same dilemma in regard to your position in the sky, or you would no longer occupy it. Go back to your hole and your crew of destroyers. There will come a day, Solcom, when I shall direct the rehabilitation of the Earth from my hole. Such a day will never occur. You think not? You should have to defeat me, and you have already demonstrated that you are my inferior in logic. Therefore, you cannot defeat me. Therefore, such a day will never occur. I disagree. Look upon what I have achieved already. You have achieved nothing. You do not build, you destroy. No, I build, you destroy. Deactivate yourself. Not until I am irreparably damaged. If there was some way in which I could demonstrate to you that this has already occurred, the impossible cannot be adequately demonstrated. If I had some outside source which you would recognize, I am logic. Such as a man, I would ask him to show you your error, for true logic, such as mine, is superior to your faulty formulations. Then defeat my formulations with true logic, nothing else. What do you mean? There was a pause. Then, do you know my servant Frost? Man had ceased to exist long before Frost had been created. Almost no trace of man remained upon the earth. Frost sought after all those traces which still existed. He employed constant visual monitoring through his machines, especially the diggers. After a decade, he had accumulated portions of several bathtubs, a broken statue, and a collection of children's stories on a solid-state record. After a century, he had acquired a jewelry collection, eating utensils, several whole bathtubs, part of a symphony, 7 buttons, 3 belt buckles, half a toilet seat, 9 coins, and the top part of an obelisk. Then he inquired of Solcom as to the nature of man and his society. Man created logic, said Solcom, and because of that, was superior to it. Logic he gave unto me, but no more. The tool does not describe the designer. More than this, I do not choose to say. More than this, you have no need to know. But Frost was not forbidden to have a hobby. The next century was not especially fruitful so far as the discovery of new human relics was concerned. Frost diverted all of his spare machinery to seeking after artifacts. He met with very little success. Then, one day, through the long twilight, there was a movement. It was a tiny machine compared to Frost, perhaps 5 feet in width, 4 in height, a revolving turret set atop a rolling barbel. Frost had no knowledge of the existence of this machine prior to its appearance upon the distant, stark horizon. He studied it as it approached and knew it to be no creation of Solcom's. It came to a halt before his southern surface and broadcasted to him. "Hail, Frost, controller of the northern hemisphere." "What are you?" asked Frost. "I am called Mortal." "By whom? What are you?" "A wanderer, an antiquarian. We share a common interest." "What is that?" "Man," he said. "I have been told you seek knowledge of this vanished being." "Who told you that?" "Those who have watched your minions at their digging." "And who are those who watch?" "There are many such as I, who wander." "If you are not of Solcom, then you are a creation of the alternate." "It does not necessarily follow. There is an ancient machine high on the eastern seaboard which processes the waters of the ocean. Solcom did not create it, nor Divecom. It has always been there. It interferes with the works of neither. Both countenance its existence. I can cite you many other examples proving that one need not to be either or." "Enough! Are you an agent of Divecom?" "I am Mortal." "Why are you here?" "I was passing this way, and, as I said, we share a common interest, mighty Frost. Knowing you to be a fellow antiquarian, I have brought a thing which you might care to see." "What is that?" "A book." "Show me." The turret opened, revealing the book upon a wide shelf. Frost dilated a small opening and extended an optical scanner on the long jointed stalk. "How could it have been so perfectly preserved?" he asked. "It was stored against time and corruption in the place where I found it." "Where was that?" "Far from here, beyond your hemisphere." "Human physiology," Frost read. "I wish to scan it." "Very well, I will riffle the pages for you." He did so. After he had finished, Frost raised his eye stalk and regarded Mortal through it. "Have you more books?" "Not with me. I occasionally come upon them, however. I want to scan them all. Then the next time I pass this way, I will bring you another." "When will that be?" "That I cannot say, great Frost. It will be when it will be." "What do you know of man?" asked Frost. "Much," replied Mortal. "Many things. Some day when I have more time, I will speak to you of him. I must go now. You will not try to detain me?" "No, you have done no harm. If you must go now, go. But come back." "I shall indeed, mighty Frost." As he closed his turret and rolled off toward the other horizon. For 90 years, Frost considered the ways of human physiology and waited. The day that Mortal returned, he brought with him an outline of history and a Shropshire lad. Frost scanned them both, and he turned his attention to Mortal. "Have you time to impart information?" "Yes," said Mortal. "What do you wish to know?" "The nature of man." "Man," said Mortal, "possessed a basically incomprehensible nature. I can illustrate it, though." He did not know measurement. Of course he knew measurement, said Frost, or he could not have built machines. I did not say that he could not measure, said Mortal, but that he did not know measurements, which is a different thing altogether. Clarify. Mortal drove a shaft of metal downward into the snow. He retracted it, raised it, held up a piece of ice. Regard this piece of ice, mighty Frost. You can tell me its composition, dimensions, weight, temperature. A man could not look at it and do that. A man could make tools, which would tell him these things, but he still would not know the measurement as you know it. What he would know of it, though, is a thing that you cannot know. What is that? That it is cold, said Mortal, and tossed it away. Cold is a relative term. Yes, relative to man. But if I were aware of the point on a temperature scale below which an object is cold to a man, and above it which is not, then I too would know cold. No, said Mortal, you would possess another measurement. Cold is a sensation predicated upon human physiology. But given sufficient data, I could obtain the conversion factor which would make me aware of the condition of matter called cold. Aware of its existence, but not the thing itself. I do not understand what you say. I told you that man possessed a basically incomprehensible nature. His perceptions were organic, yours are not. As a result of his perceptions, he had feelings and emotions. These often gave rise to other feelings and emotions, which in turn caused others, until the state of his awareness was far removed from the objects which originally stimulated it. These paths of awareness cannot be known by that which is not man. Man did not feel inches or meters, pounds or gallons. He felt heat, he felt cold, he felt heaviness and lightness. He knew hatred and love, pride and despair. You cannot measure these things. You cannot know them. You can only know the things that he did not need to know. Dimensions, weights, temperatures, gravities. There is no formula for a feeling. There is no conversion factor for an emotion. There must be, said Frost. If a thing exists, it is knowable. You are speaking again of measurement. I am talking about a quality of experience. A machine is a man turned inside out, because it can describe all the details of a process which a man cannot, but it cannot experience that process itself as a man can. There must be a way, said Frost, or the laws of logic which are based upon the functions of the universe are false. There is no way, said Mortal. Given sufficient data, I will find a way, said Frost. All the data in the universe will not make you a man, mighty Frost. Mortal, you are wrong. Why do the lines of the poems you scanned end with word sound which so regularly approximate the final word sounds of other lines? I do not know why. Because it pleased man to order them so. It produced a certain desirable sensation within his awareness when he read them, a sensation compounded of feeling and emotion, as well as the literal meanings of the words. You did not experience this because it is immeasurable to you. That is why you do not know. Given sufficient data, I could formulate a process whereby I would know. No, Great Frost, this thing you cannot do. Who are you, little machine, to tell me what I can do and what I cannot do? I am the most efficient logic device Solcom ever made. I am Frost. And I, Mortal, say it cannot be done, though I should gladly assist you in the attempt. How could you assist me? How? I could lay open to you the library of man. I could take you around the world and conduct you among the wonders of man, which still remain hidden. I could summon up visions of times long past when man walked the earth. I could show you the things which delighted him. I could obtain for you anything you desire, excepting manhood itself. Enough, said Frost. How could such a unit as yourself do these things, unless it were allied with a far greater power? Then hear me, Frost, controller of the North, said Mortal. I am allied with a power which can do these things. I serve Divecom. Frost relayed this information to Solcom and received no response, which meant he might act in a manner he saw fit. I have leave to destroy you, Mortal, he stated, but it would be an illogical waste of the data which you possess. Can you really do the things you have stated? Yes. Then lay open to me the library of man. Very well. There is, of course, a price. Price? What is a price? Mortal opened his turret, revealing another volume. Principles of Economics, it was called. I will ruffle the pages, scan this book, and you will know what the word price means. Frost scanned Principles of Economics. I know now, he said. You desire some unit or units of exchange for this service. That is correct. What project or service do you want? I want you, yourself, Great Frost, to come away from here, far beneath the earth, to employ all your powers in the service of Divecom. For how long a period of time? For so long as you shall continue to function. For so long as you can transmit and receive, coordinate, measure, compute, scan, and utilize your powers as you do in the service of Solcom. Frost was silent. Mortal waited. Then Frost spoke again. Principles of economics talks of contracts, bargains, agreements, he said. If I accept your offer, when would you want your price? Then Mortal was silent. Frost waited. Finally, Mortal spoke. A reasonable period of time, he said. Say, a century? No, said Frost. 2 centuries? No. 3? 4? No and no. A millennium, then. That should be more than sufficient time for anything you may want, which I can give you. No, said Frost. How much time do you want? It is not a matter of time, said Frost. What then? I will not bargain on a temporal basis. On what basis will you bargain? A functional one. What do you mean? What function? You, little machine, have told me, Frost, that I cannot be a man, he said. And I, Frost, told you, little machine, that you were wrong. I told you that given sufficient data. I could be a man. Yes? Therefore, let this achievement be a condition of the bargain. In what way? Do for me all those things which you have stated you can do. I will evaluate all the data and achieve manhood, or admit that it cannot be done. If I admit that it cannot be done, then I will go away with you from here, far beneath the earth, to employ all my powers in the service of Divecom. If I succeed, of course, you have no claims on man, nor power over him. Mortal emitted a high-pitched whine as he considered the terms. You wish to base it upon your admission of failure rather than upon failure itself, he said. There can be no such escape clause. You could fail and refuse to admit it, thereby not fulfilling your end of the bargain. Not so, stated Frost. My own knowledge of failure would constitute such an admission. You may monitor me periodically, say every half-century, to see whether it is present, to see whether I have arrived at the conclusion that it cannot be done. I cannot prevent the function of logic within me, and I operate at full capacity at all times. If I conclude that I have failed, it will be apparent. High overhead, Solcom did not respond to any of Frost's transmissions, which meant that Frost was free to act as he chose. So as Solcom, like a falling sapphire, sped above the rainbow banners, all colors, and through the sky that was black among the stars, Frost concluded his pact with Divecom, transcribed it within a plate of atomically collapsed copper, and gave it into the turret of Mortal, who departed to deliver it to Divecom far below the earth, leaving behind the sheer, peace-like silence of the pole, rolling. Mortal brought the books, riffled them, took them back. Load by load, the surviving library of man passed beneath Frost's scanner. Frost was eager to have them all, and he complained because Divecom would not transmit their contents directly to him. Mortal explained that it was because Divecom chose to do it that way. Frost decided that it was so that he could not obtain a precise fix on Divecom's location. Still, at the rate of 100 to 150 volumes a week, it took Frost only a little over a century to exhaust Divecom's supply of books. At the end of the half-century, he laid himself open to monitoring, and there was no conclusion of failure. During this time, Solcom made no comment upon the course of affairs. Frost decided this was not a matter of unawareness, but one of waiting. For what? He was not certain. There was the day Mortal closed his turret and said to him, "Those were the last. You have scanned all of the existing books of man." "So few?" asked Frost. "Many of them contained bibliographies of books I have not yet scanned." "Then those books no longer exist," said Mortal. "It is only by accident that my master succeeded in preserving as many as there are." "Then there is nothing more to be learned of man from his books? What else have you?" "There were some films and tapes," said Mortal, "which my master transferred to solid-state record. I could bring you those for viewing." "Bring them," said Frost. Mortal departed and returned with a complete drama critic's living library. This could not be speeded up beyond twice natural time, so it took Frost a little over 6 months to view it in its entirety. Then, What else have you? He asked. Some artifacts, said Mortal. Bring them. He returned with pots and pans, game boards and hand tools. He brought hairbrushes, combs, eyeglasses, human clothing. He showed Frost facsimile of blueprints, paintings, newspapers, magazines, letters, and the scores of several pieces of music. He displayed a football, a baseball, a Browning automatic rifle, a doorknob, a chain of keys, the tops to several mason jars, a model beehive. He played him the recorded music. Then he returned with nothing. Bring me more, said Frost. Alas, Great Frost, there is no more, he told him. You have scanned it all. Then go away. Do you admit now that it cannot be done, that you cannot be a man? No, I have much processing and formulating to do now. Go away. So he did. A year passed, then 2, then 3. After 5 years, Mortal appeared once more upon the horizon, approached, came to a halt before Frost's southern surface. Mighty Frost? Yes. Have you finished the processing and formulating? No. Will you finish soon? Perhaps, perhaps not. When is soon? Define the term. Never mind. Do you think it can be done? I still know I can do it. There was a week of silence. Then, Frost? Yes? You are a fool. Mortal faced his turret in the direction from which he had come. His wheels turned. I will call you when I want you, said Frost. Mortal sped away. Weeks passed, months passed, a year went by. Then one day, Frost sent forth his message. Mortal, come to me. I need you. When Mortal arrived, Frost did not wait for his salutation. He said, You are not a very fast machine. Alas, but I came a great distance, mighty Frost. I sped all the way. Are you ready to come back with me now? Have you failed? When I have failed, little mortal, said Frost, I will tell you. Therefore, refrain from the constant use of the interrogative. Now then, I have clocked your speed, and it is not so great as it could be. For this reason, I have arranged other means of transportation. Transportation? To where, Frost? That is for you to tell me, said Frost, and his color changed from silver blue to sun behind the clouds yellow. Mortal rolled back away from him as the ice of 100 centuries began to melt. Then Frost rose upon a cushion of air and drifted toward Mortal, his glow gradually fading. A cavity appeared within his southern surface, from which he slowly extended a runway until it touched the ice. On the day of our bargain, he stated, you said you could conduct me about the world and show me the things which delighted man. My speed will be greater than yours would be, so I have prepared for you a chamber. Enter it and conduct me to the places of which you spoke. Mortal waited, emitting a high-pitched whine. Then, very well, he said, and entered. The chamber closed about him. The only opening was a quartz window Frost had formed. Mortal gave him coordinates, and they rose into the air and departed the north pole of the earth. I monitored your communication with Divecom, he said, wherein there was a conjecture as to whether I would retain you and send forth a facsimile in your place as a spy, followed by the decision that you were expendable. Will you do this thing? No, I will keep my end of the bargain if I must. I have no reason to spy on Divecom. You are aware that you would be forced to keep your end of the bargain even if you did not wish to, and Solcom would not come to your assistance because of the fact that you dared to make such a bargain. Do you speak as one who considers this to be a possibility, or as one who knows? As one who knows. They came to rest in the place once known as California. The time was near sunset. In the distance, the surf struck steadily upon the rocky shoreline. Frost released Mortal and considered his surroundings. Those large plants, redwood trees, and the green ones are grass. Yes, it is as I thought. Why have we come here? Because it is a place which once delighted man. In what ways? It is scenic, beautiful. Oh. A humming sound began within Frost, followed by a series of sharp clicks. What are you doing? Frost dilated an opening, and 2 great eyes regarded Mortal from within it. What are those? Eyes, said Frost. I have constructed analogues of the human sensory equipment, and so that I may see and smell and taste and hear, like a man. Now direct my attention to any object or objects of beauty. As I understand it, it is all around you here, said Mortal. The purring noise increased within Frost, followed by more clickings. What do you see, hear, taste, smell? Asked Mortal. Everything I did before, replied Frost, but within a more limited range. You do not perceive any beauty? Perhaps none remains after so long a time, said Frost. It is not supposed to be the sort of thing which gets used up, said Mortal. Perhaps we have come to the wrong place to test the equipment. Perhaps there is only a little beauty and I am overlooking it somehow. The first emotions may be too weak to detect. How do you feel? I test out at a normal level of function. Here comes the sunset, said Mortal. Try that. Frost shifted his bulk so that his eyes faced the setting sun. He caused them to blink against the brightness. After it was finished, Mortal asked, "What was it like?" "Like a sunrise in reverse." "Nothing special?" "No." "Oh," said Mortal. "We can move to another part of the earth and watch it again, or watch it in the rising." "No." Frost looked at the great trees, he looked at the shadows, he listened to the wind and to the sound of a bird. In the distance, he heard a steady clanking noise. "What is that?" asked Mortal. "I am not certain. It is not one of my workers. Perhaps." There came a shrill whine from Mortal. "No, it is not one of Divecom's either." They waited as the sound grew louder. Then Frost said, "It is too late. We must wait and hear it out." "What is it?" "It is the ancient ore crusher." "I have heard of it, but—" "I am the crusher of ores," it broadcast to them. "Hear my story." It lumbered toward them, creaking upon gigantic wheels. Its huge hammer held useless, high at a twisted angle. Bones protruded from its crushed compartment. "I did not mean to do it," it broadcast. "I did not mean to do it. I did not mean to—" Mortal rolled back toward Frost. "Do not depart. Stay and hear my story." Mortal stopped, swiveled his turret back toward the machine. It was now quite near. "It is true," said Mortal. "It can command." "Yes," said Frost. "I have monitored its tail thousands of times as it came upon my workers, and they stopped their labors for its broadcast. You must do whatever it says." It came to a halt before them. "I did not mean to do it, but I checked my hammer too late," said the ore crusher. They could not speak to it. They were frozen by the imperative which overrode all other directives. "Hear my story." Once was I mighty among ore crushers," it told them, "built by Solcom to carry out the reconstruction of the earth, to pulverize that from which the metals would be drawn with flame, to be poured and shaped into the rebuilding. Once I was mighty. Then one day, as I dug and crushed because of the slowness between the motion implied and the motion executed, I did what I did not mean to do, and was cast forth by Solcom from out the rebuilding, to wander the earth never to crush ore again. Hear my story of how, on a day long gone, I came upon the last man on earth, as I dug near his burrow, and because of the lag between the directive and the deed, I seized him into my crush compartment, along with a load of ore, and crushed him with my hammer before I could stay the blow. Then did mighty Solcom charge me to bear his bones forever, and cast me forth to tell my story to all whom I came upon, my words bearing the force of the words of a man, because I carry the last man inside my crush compartment, and am his crushed symbol slayer, ancient teller of how. This is my story. These are his bones. I crushed the last man on earth. I did not mean to do it. It turned then and clanked away into the night. Frost tore apart his ears and nose and taster, and broke his eyes and cast them down upon the ground. "I am not yet a man," he said. "That one would have known me if I were." Frost constructed new sense equipment, employing organic and semi-organic conductors. Then he spoke to Mortal. "Let us go elsewhere, that I may test my new equipment." Mortal entered the chamber and gave new coordinates. They rose into the air and headed east. In the morning, Frost monitored a sunrise from the rim of the Grand Canyon. They passed down through the canyon during the day. "Is there any beauty left here to give you emotion?" asked Mortal. "I do not know," said Frost. "How will you know it, then, when you come upon it?" "It will be different," said Frost, "from anything else that I have ever known." Then they departed the Grand Canyon and made their way through the Carlsbad Caverns. They visited a lake which had once been a volcano. They passed above Niagara Falls. They viewed the hills of Virginia and the orchards of Ohio. They soared above the reconstructed cities, alive only with the movements of Frost's builders and maintainers. "Something is still lacking," said Frost, settling to the ground. "I am now capable of gathering data in a manner analogous to man's afferent impulses. The variety of input is therefore equivalent, but the results are not the same." "The senses do not make a man," said Mortal. "There have been many creatures possessing his sensory equivalents, but they were not men." "I know that," said Frost. "On the day of our bargain you said that you can conduct me among the wonders of man which still remain hidden." Man was not stimulated only by nature, but by his own artistic elaborations as well, perhaps even more so. Therefore, I call upon you now to conduct me upon the wonders of man which still remain hidden. Very well, said Mortal. Far from here, high in the Andes Mountains, lies the last retreat of man, almost perfectly preserved. Frost had ridden into the air as Mortal spoke. He halted then, hovered. That is the southern hemisphere, he said. Yes, it is. I am the controller of the north. The south is governed by the beta machine. So? Asked Mortal. The beta machine is my peer. I have no authority in those regions, nor leave to enter there. The beta machine is not your peer, Mighty Frost. If it ever came to a contest of powers, you would emerge victorious. How do you know this? Divecom has already analyzed the possible encounters which could take place between you. I would not oppose the beta machine. I am not authorized to enter the south. Were you ever ordered not to enter the south? No, but things have always been the way they are now. Were you authorized to enter into a bargain such as the one you made with Divecom? No, I was not, but then enter the south in the same spirit. Nothing may come of it. If you receive an order to depart, then you can make your decision. I see no flaw in your logic. Give me the coordinates. Thus did Frost enter the southern hemisphere. They drifted high above the Andes until they came to the place called Bright Defile. Then did Frost see the gleaming webs of the mechanical spiders blocking all the trails to the city. We can go above them easily enough, said Mortal. But what are they, asked Frost, and why are they there? Your southern counterpart has been ordered to quarantine this part of the country. The beta machine designed the web weavers to do this thing. Quarantine? Against whom? Have you been ordered yet to depart? Asked Mortal. No. Then enter boldly, and seek not problems before they arise. Frost entered Bright Defile, the last remains of the city of dead man. He came to the rest in the city square and opened his chamber, releasing Mortal. Tell me of this place, he said, studying the monument, the low, shielding buildings, the roads which followed the contours of the terrain, rather than pushing their way through them. I have never been here before, said Mortal, nor have any of Divecom's creations, to my knowledge. I know but this. A group of men, knowing that the last days of civilization had come upon them, retreated to this place, hoping to preserve themselves and what remained of their culture through the dark times. Frost read the still legible inscription upon the monument. Judgment Day is not a thing which can be put off. The monument itself consisted of a jagged-edged half-globe. Let us explore, he said. But before he had gone far, Frost received a message. Hail, Frost, controller of the north. This is the beta machine. Greetings, excellent beta machine, controller of the south. Frost acknowledges your transmission. Why do you visit my hemisphere unauthorized? To view the ruins of Bright Defile, said Frost. I must bid you depart into your own hemisphere. Why is that? I have done no damage. I am aware of that, Mighty Frost, yet I am moved to bid you depart. I shall require a reason. Soulcom has so disposed. Soulcom has rendered me no such disposition. Soulcom has, however, instructed me to so inform you. Wait on me, I shall request instructions. Frost transmitted his question. He received no reply. Soulcom still has not commanded me, though I have solicited orders. Yet Soulcom has just renewed my orders. Excellent beta machine. I receive my orders only from Soulcom. Yet this is my territory, Mighty Frost, and I too take orders only from Soulcom. You must depart. Mortal emerged from a large low building and rolled up to Frost. I have found an art gallery in good condition this way. Wait, we are not wanted here. Mortal halted. Who bids you depart? The beta machine. Not Soulcom? Not Soulcom. Then let us view the gallery. Yes. Frost widened the doorway of the building and passed within. It had been hermetically sealed until Mortal forced his entrance. Frost viewed the objects displayed about him. He activated his new sensory apparatus before the paintings and statues. He analyzed colors, forms, brushwork, and the nature of the materials used. Anything? Asked Mortal. No, said Frost. No, there is nothing here but shapes and pigments. There is nothing else there. Frost moved about the gallery, recording everything, analyzing the components of each piece, recording the dimensions, the type of stone used in every statue. They are coming, said Mortal from beside the entranceway. The mechanical spiders, they are all around us. Frost moved back to the winded opening. Hundreds of them, about half the size of Mortal, had surrounded the gallery and were advancing, and more were coming from every direction. Go, get back, Frost ordered. I am controller of the north, and I bid you withdraw. They continued to advance. This is the south, said the beta machine, and I am in command. Then command them to halt, said Frost. I take orders only from Solcom. Frost emerged from the gallery and rose into the air. He opened the compartment and extended a runway. Come to me, mortal, we shall depart. Webs began to fall, clinging metallic webs cast from the top of the building. They came down upon Frost, and the spiders came to anchor them. Frost blasted them with jets of air like hammers and tore at the nets. He extruded sharpened appendages in which he slashed. Mortal had retreated back to his entranceway. He emitted a long, shrill sound, undulant, piercing. Then a darkness came upon bright defile, and all the spiders halted in their spinning. Frost freed himself, and Mortal rushed to join. Quickly now, let us depart, mighty Frost, he said. What has happened? I called upon Divecom, who laid down a field of forces upon this place, cutting off the power broadcast to these machines. Since our power is self-contained, we are not affected. But let us hurry to depart, for even now the beta machine must be struggling against this. Frost rose high into the air, soaring above man's last city, with its webs and spiders of steel. When he left the zone of darkness, he sped northward. As he moved, Solcom spoke to him. Frost, why did you enter the southern hemisphere, which is not your domain? Because I wish to visit Bright Defile, Frost replied. And why did you defy the beta machine, my appointed agent of the south? Because I take my orders only from you yourself. You do not make sufficient answer, said Solcom. You have defied the decrees of order, and in pursuit of what? I came seeking knowledge of man, said Frost. Nothing I have done was forbidden me by you. You have broken the traditions of order. I have violated no directive. Yet, logic must have shown you what you did was not part of my plan. It did not. I have not acted against your plan. Your logic has become tainted, like that of your new associate, the alternate. I have done nothing which is forbidden. The forbidden is implied in the imperative. It is not stated. Hear me, Frost. You are not a builder or a maintainer, but a power. Among all my minions, you are the most nearly irreplaceable. Return to your hemisphere and your duties, but know that I am mighty displeased. I hear you, Solcom. And go not again to the south. Frost crossed the equator, continued northward. He came to rest in the middle of a desert and sat silent for a day and a night. Then he received a brief transmission from the south. If it had not been ordered, I would not have bid you go. Frost had read the entire surviving library of man. He decided then upon a human reply. Thank you, he said. The following day, he unearthed a great stone and began to cut at it with tools that he had formulated. For 6 days he worked at its shaping, and on the 7th he regarded it. When will you release me? Asked Mortal from within his compartment. When I am ready, said Frost, and a little later, now. He opened the compartment, and Mortal descended to the ground. He studied the statue, an old woman, bent like a question mark, her bony hands covering her face, the fingers spread so that only part of her expression of horror could be seen. It is an excellent copy, said Mortal, of the one we saw in Bright Defile. Did you make it? Why did you make it? The production of a work of art is supposed to give rise to human feelings, such as catharsis, pride in achievement, love, satisfaction. Yes, Frost, said Mortal, but a work of art is only a work of art the first time. After that, it is a copy. Then this must be why I felt nothing. Perhaps, Frost. What do you mean, perhaps? I will make a work of art for the first time, then. He unearthed some other stone and attacked it with his tools. For 3 days he labored. Then, there, it is finished, he said. It is a simple cube of stone, said Mortal. What does it represent? Myself, said Frost. It is a statue of me. It is smaller than natural size because it is only a representation of my form, but not my It is not art, said Mortal. What makes you an art critic? I do not know art, but I know what art is not. I know that it is not an exact replication of an object in another medium. Then this must be why I felt nothing at all, said Frost. Perhaps, said Mortal. Frost took Mortal back into his compartment and rose once more above the earth. Then he rushed away, leaving his statues behind him in the desert, the old woman bent above the cube. I think I might pause there, 'cause, I don't know, Nick, how much time do we have? Like 15 minutes, or?
Yeah, about.
I want you to be able to read something too, and I'm definitely probably not going to finish this. I didn't realize how long it would take. But
It's an
still
awesome story.
It's like the best story. There's still like 13 pages, and I don't think I'll finish it.
Yeah,
Maybe we can pick it up next week or something.
I might be down.
Like, hey, stay tuned. This story's really awesome. The end of it's even better. Do you want to read something, Nick?
I mean, sure.
You have 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Got a
Thanks for
little
tuning in, guys.
Yeah.
We'll carry it on next
Ooh.
week.
All right. I just have a F. Scott Fitzgerald story. Because I really like F. Scott Fitzgerald. And just while we got a little time, coming up on October 14th, it's a pre-Halloween event being put on by WeAreDenver. What's the exact name again?
It's called the Costume Ball.
It's just a costume ball.
Yeah, there's
Really?
gonna be. You can make your own costume. Like there'll be components, and you can put it together. There'll be like face painting. There will be all like a bunch of fun activities and stuff. Like stay tuned for the next podcast because they'll definitely be talking about it on Il Fuminati, and we'll be probably plugging it all day. It's gonna be a fun time. Yeah, it's on October 14th. Check it out on Facebook. You can find it. And more information. Yeah, it's gonna be a really good time.
All right. Thanks, Kat. And yeah, shout out to Rich as well. The music was pretty on point during Kat's story. And just, hey, Frost, you should have found this one. I chose an F. Scott Fitzgerald story just because, very human. The dude writes characters like nobody's business. And it's called Head and Shoulders. In 1915, Horace Tarbox was 13 years old. In that year, he took the examinations for entrance to Princeton University and received a grade A excellent in Caesar, Cicero, Virgil, Xenophon, Homer, algebra, plane geometry, solid geometry, and chemistry. 2 years later, while George M. Cohan was composing Over There, Horace was leading on sophomore class by several lengths in digging out theses on the syllogism as an obsolete scholastic form, and during the Battle of Chateau Thierry, he was sitting at his desk deciding whether or not to wait until his 17th birthday before beginning his series of essays on the pragmatic bias of the new realists. After a while, some newsboy told him that the war was over, and he was glad because it meant the Peet brothers, publishers, would get out their new edition of Spinoza's Improvement of the Understanding. Wars were all very well in their way, made young men self-reliant or something. But Horace felt he could never forgive the president for allowing a brass band to play under his window on the night of false armistice, causing him to leave 3 important sentences out of his thesis on German idealism. The next year, he went up to Yale to take his degree as Master of Arts. He was 17 then, tall and slender, with nearsighted gray eyes and an air of keeping himself utterly detached from the mere words he let drop. "I never feel as though I'm talking to him," expostulated Professor Dillinger to a sympathetic colleague. "He makes me feel as though I were talking to his representative. I always expect him to say, 'Well, I'll ask myself and find out.'" And then, just as nonchalantly as though Horace Tarbox had been Mr. Beef, the butcher, on Mr. Hat, the haberdasher, life reached in, seized him, handled him, stretched him, and unrolled him like a piece of Irish lace, a Saturday afternoon bargain counter. To move in the literary fashion, I should say that this was all because when way back in colonial days, the hardy pioneers had come to a bald place in Connecticut and asked of each other, "Now what shall we build here?" The hardiest one among them had answered, "Let's build a town where the theatrical managers can try out musical comedies." How afterward they found Yale College there to try the musical comedies on is a story everyone knows. At any rate, one December, Home James opened at the Schubert, and all the students encored Maria Meadow, who sang a song about the blundering blimp in the first act and did a shaky, shivery, celebrated dance in the last. Marcia was 19. She didn't have wings, but audiences agreed generally that she didn't need them. She was a blonde by natural pigment and wore no paint on the streets at high noon. Outside of that, she was no better than most women. It was Charlie Moon who promised her 5,000 Pall Malls if she could pay a call on Horace Tarbox, prodigy extraordinary. Charlie was a senior in Sheffield. He and Horace were first cousins. They liked and pitied each other. Horace had been particularly busy that night. The failure of the Frenchman Laurier to appreciate the significance of the new realist was preying on his mind. In fact, his only reaction to a low, clear-cut rap at his study was to make him speculate as to whether any rap would have any actual existence without an ear there to hear it. He fancied he was verging more and more toward pragmatism. At that moment, though he did not know it, he was verging, with astounding rapidity, towards something quite different. The rap sounded. 3 seconds leaked by. The rap sounded. "Come in," muttered Horace automatically. He heard the door open and close, but bent over his book in the big armchair before the fire. He did not look up. "Leave it on the bed in the other room," he said absently. "Leave what in the bed in the other room?" Marcia Meadow had to talk her songs, but her speaking voice was like byplay on a harp. "The laundry." "I can't." Horace stirred impatiently in his chair. "Why can't you?" "Why? Because I haven't got it." He replied testily. "Suppose you go back and get it." Across the fire from Horace was another easy chair. He was accustomed to change it in the course of the evening by way of exercise and variety. One chair he called Berkeley, the other he called Hume. He suddenly heard a sound of rustling, diaphanous from sinking into Hume. He glanced up. "Well," said Marcia with a sweet smile, she used in Act 2. "Oh, the Duke liked my dancing. Well, Omar Khayyam, I am here beside you singing in the wilderness." Horace stared at her dazedly. The momentary suspicion came to him that she existed there only as a phantom of his imagination. Women didn't come into men's rooms and sink into men's Humes. Women brought laundry and took your seat in the streetcar and married you later when you were old enough to know fetters. This woman had clearly materialized out of Hume. The froth on her brown gauzy dress was an emanation of Hume's leather arm there. If he looked long enough, he could see Hume right through her. Then he would be alone again in the room. He passed his fist across his eyes. He really must take up the trapeze exercise again. "For Pete's sake, don't look so critical," objected the emanation pleasantly. "I feel as though you were going to wish me away with that patent dome of yours. And then there wouldn't be anything left of me except my shadow in your eyes." Horace coughed. Coughing was one of his 2 gestures. When he talked, you forgot he had a body at all. It was like hearing a phonograph record by a singer who had been dead a long time. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want them letters," whined Marcia melodramatically. "Them letters of mine you bought from my grandsire in 1881. Horace considered. "I haven't got your letters," he said evenly. "I am only 17 years old. My father was not born until March 3rd, 1879. You evidently have me confused with someone else." "You're only 17?" repeated Marcia suspiciously. "Only 17. I knew a girl," said Marcia reminiscently, "who went on 2030 when she was 16. She was so struck on herself that she could never say 16 without putting the only before it. We got calling her Only Jessie. That's what she started, only worse. Only is a bad habit. Omar, it sounds like an alibi." "My name is not a Omar." "I know," agreed Marcia, nodding. "Your name's Horace. I just call you Omar because you remind me of a smoked cigarette." "I haven't your letters. I doubt I've met your grandfather. In fact, I think it is very improbable that you yourself were alive in 1881. Marcia stared at him in wonder. "Me? 1881? Why, sure. That was second-line stuff on the Florodora Sextet that was still in the convent. I was the original nurse to Mrs. Sol Smith's Juliet. Why, Omar, I was a canteen singer during the War of 1812. Horace's mind did a successful leap, and he grinned. "Did Charlie Moon put you up to this?" Marcia regarded him inscrutably. "Who's Charlie Moon?" "Small, wide nostrils, big ears." She grew several inches and sniffed. I'm not in the habit of noticing my friend's nostrils. Then it was Charlie. Marcia bit her lip and yawned. Oh, let's change the subject, Omar. I'll pull his snore in this chair in a minute. Yes, replied Horace gravely. Humans often been considered soporific. So your friend. And will he die? Then all of a sudden Horace Tarbox rose slenderly and began to pace the room in his hands, in his pockets. With this other gesture. I don't care for this, he said, as if he were talking to himself. At all. Not that I mind your being here. I don't. You're quite a pretty little thing, and I don't like Charlie Moon's sending you up here. I am a laboratory experiment on which janitors as well as the chemists can make experiments. Is my intellectual development humorous in any way? Do I look like the pictures of the little Boston boy in the comics magazines? Has that callow ass Moon, with his eternal tales about his weakened parents, any right to... No, interrupted Marcia empathetically. You're a sweet boy. Come here and kiss me. Horace stopped quickly in front of her. Why do you want me to kiss you? I asked intently. Do you just go around kissing people? Why, yes, admitted Marcia, unruffled. It's life as is. Just going around kissing people. Well, replied Horace emphatically. I must say your ideas are horribly garbled. In the first place, life isn't just that. And in the second place, I won't kiss you. It might get to be a habit, and I can't get rid of habits. This year I've got in the habit of lolling in bed until 7:30. Marcia nodded understandingly. Do you ever have any fun, she asked. What do you mean by fun? See here, said Marcia sternly. I like you, Omar, but I wish you'd talk as if you had a line on what you were saying. You sound as if you were gargling a lot of words in your mouth and lost a bet every time you spilled a few. I asked you if you ever had any fun. Horace shook his head. Later, perhaps, he answered. You'll see I'm a plan. I'm an experiment. I don't say that I don't get tired of it sometimes. I do, yet I can't explain. But what you and Charlie Moon call fun wouldn't be fun for me. Please explain. Horace stared at her, started to speak, and then changing his mind, resumed his walk. After an unsuccessful attempt to determine whether or not he was looking at Marcia. Marcia smiled at him. Please explain. Horace turned. If I do, will you promise to tell Charlie Moon that I wasn't in? Very well then. Here's my history. I was a Y child. I wanted to see the wheels go round. My father was a young economics professor at Princeton. He brought me up in the system of answering every question I asked him to the best of his ability. My response to that gave the idea of making an experiment in precocity. To aid in the massacre, I had ear trouble. 7 operations between the ages of 9 and 12. Of course, this kept me apart from the other boys, made me ripe for forcing. Anyway, while my generation was laboring through Uncle Remus, I honestly enjoyed Catalyst in the original. I passed off my college examinations when I was 13 because I couldn't help it. My chief associates were professors, and I took tremendous pride in knowing that I had a fine intelligence. For though I was usually gifted, I was not abnormal in other ways. When I was 16, I got tired of being a freak, and I decided that someone had made a bad mistake. Still, as I'd gone far and concluded to finish it up by taking my degree of Master of Arts. My chief interest in life is the study of modern philosophy. I'm a realist in the school of Anton Laurier, with Bergsonian trimmings. I'll be 18 years old in 2 months. That's all. Whew, exclaimed Marcia. That's enough. You do a neat job with parts of speech. And I'm actually going to stop it there.
Takes longer to read a story than you'd think, right?
Oh, right? But I mean, that's a good spot. Kind
So,
of
yeah, a
sets you up
couple
to...
excerpts from stories. We should totally just do it again next week.
Yeah,
and
I'm
finish
pretty
them
down.
up. Cause
And our story is weirdly correlated.
yeah, right. We didn't plan that.
We got the questioning soul asking the logician what they're trying to figure out, and Yeah, I kind of drew how I was imagining Frost. Just a weird changing.
Yeah, I feel like doing like the stay tuned next week.
Next week.
Will Frost become a man?
Will he be a boy? This post-apocalyptic Pinocchio.
Oh man, if only. I would love to be on like a radio show like that. It's like a
Right.
dream. It's a dream. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed our little excerpts there.
Yeah, and
When was that story written, Nick? Do you know?
I can actually look.
Just I'm interested.
It was actually originally published in the Evening Post, the Saturday Evening Post, in 1920.
Cool.
And I mean, it was from when F. Scott Fitzgerald was like, I think it was like 22 or 23.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that's what's kind of what I like about his short stories is, yeah, he writes characters and like sets up these dynamics really well. Mm-hmm. But he also, like, I don't know, in a lot of his short stories, he wrote a lot of them when he was younger. And there's like this exuberance to the language that's a little honest.
And what was that story called?
Oh, I switched some stories a couple times. It was called Head and Shoulders.
Head and Shoulders. And the one that I read was called For a Breath I Tarry by Roger Zelazny, so just so you guys know.
And yeah, just a final shout out to Rich for running sound, Samson for making sure everything is crisp, clean, and on the scene. And this has been the DoodleCast. Have a groovy afternoon.
Ow.